Hey everyone, okay, here's the full version video. As I said, in the short intro one, that for the proposal, if I had enough positive feedback, I would do a full video explaining it a lot better. Now, I've only had one, which you wouldn't even exactly call it negative, but I say negative. Saying you can already Google everything, and the problem with that is, we on roadside, unless you pull it up from the exact page that officer uses, they won't accept it. So what I'm proposing is the one website that does everything. So we have all our laws written on it, upcoming, what's just come in, any grace periods and stuff like that. Now, before I go any further, I do need to make a disclaimer, because I have had a couple of people turn around and say, oh, that's what the NHVR's for. Well, sorry, but the NHVR can't quote WA and Northern Territory. But I am not trying to combine the three last government agencies that deal with law enforcement on transport at all. What I'm trying to do is have one site that works for the last three. So that way, everyone can go to the one web page, look at the cross borders. Courts can look at it, prosecutors can look at it, transport drivers, transport customers, sending and receiving. Everyone can go to it. Now, with the routing, that there may have to be a different page. It could be probably put in the same page. I don't know. It depends on how big the servers are going to be and what's involved. So, going on with it. Right, the website that actually has all the laws written on it, putting an AI system into it would help eliminate some obsolete laws and laws that clash with each other. Now, at the end of the day, humans are only human beings, and we do make errors and things do get oversighted. And the AI could be purely for a handful of reasons. One, to go through and see what laws clash with laws, see what laws are now obsolete and may need removing, because there are a few out there. And until they pop up in court and the court actually sends a notice or whatever the case may be, they just remain there. But, for example, a long time ago now, I don't know whether this has been changed or not, but there was an oversized movement in Brisbane. Now, this law was made for the original Gateway Bridge, not the two that are standing there now, the original one. And as soon as this crane hit the bridge, the police officer stopped the crane, booked the driver, and then took him over the bridge, because the permit said he could. But the thing is, why did it go that way? Why wasn't it stopped beforehand? It's to stop stuff like that from happening. And that's what the routing part of it is too, which I'll get to soon. But, for example, I'll show it again, where we go looking for stuff. And the thing is that the NHVR page, for example, there's section 111, sorry. And it is really hard to actually search it and come up, because it comes up with everything else. Now, the thing is, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm just clicking on random pages here that have some of it written in there, and it's you've got to find it, you've got to look for it. It's, what do? It's different notices here, there, and everywhere. And the thing is, as I've shown in the other video, it only shows what it stands for. There's no click here for more information. There's no, this page, this act or this law, this section also has other sections involved. And that's where the AI can actually come in and say, right, I've been breached for, say, section, I don't know, would say any number, say section 50. And you might find there's a couple other sections that roll into it as well, depending on what the charges are actually for. Now, that It just means we're human, and we just, yeah, unless you're a superstar or you work in that with those sections all the time, the average person is not going to be able to deal with it. And that's why I say, that's why I'm basing it all off the average person. Our fatigue hours are based off the average person. So, yes, there's some drivers that can drive for 10 hours straight non-stop, but the average person can't. For me, for example, I think the most I've ever done in the last 2 years is 5 hours straight. And by the time I got to it, I was really busting to go to the toilet, and I was getting pretty hungry. So, at some point in time, you know, I probably don't even bother with it anymore. I do approximately 3 hours worth of driving, and I just stop for a break. That's the average person today. And that's what I base all this off, the average person. Now, the advantage too is having all the laws on one page. That means cross-border stuff is a lot easier to do. So, for example, the border village there, the WA South Australian border, I have known a few times where you got Western Australian authorities on one side pulling drivers up as they coming in and explaining all the fatigue stuff and going over vehicles. And then on the other side, the South Australian authorities, or slash NHVR, are there too, getting them coming from the west over. And the thing is, you might find what's legal in WA may not be legal in South Australia, and vice versa. And this would actually help do it. For example, the first time I went to South Australia with my own truck and a B-double, I didn't know I was legal up to the WA border. I thought I could still travel as normal, and I couldn't. It wasn't until after I came back home, made a phone call and say, how do I read your maps? And when they started hitting me with a whole lot of questions, like, what's this? This is where the AI system would actually kick in, and that's more on the routing, but it's also needed on the law side of it. So we'll move on to the next section. Okay, now with the routing. Now, let me just minimise this a bit, and I'll pull up NHVRQ, the general use of all the map routing here in Australia. Now, as you can see, you've got ACT, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Victoria, and the Australian Defence Force. What is missing here is Tasmania, which you still have to go to the old map and pull it up. And I've also noticed on the Tasmanian map, you have a look, anyone that knows Tasmania that hasn't been there for a long time will take one look and say, oh yeah, I can go there all the way down. And there's a good chance they may screw up. And this is where AI would actually come in, because when I zoom into where this red dot is, let me zoom back out. Now, on average, everyone would probably zoom into about there. Still looks right. Again, you zoom in, and there's a section where the mouse is traveling where you're not allowed to travel. Now, I've never been to Tasmania, so I can't actually comment about the roads so much down there, but I would assume they're the same as they are in the mainland. But heading back to NHVRQ, now, one of the things I have noticed is when you go down to vehicles and vehicle routings, like I'm hitting B-double here, the average B-double will go down to the 26 metre length, and still, if you have a look, it doesn't cover Queensland. So, if I'm going from Victoria to Queensland, or South Australia to Queensland, I've still got to do a minimum of 2 websites or 2 of these pages to actually get my routing up. AI would actually get around that. Simple with AI, you just put in and go stuff like that. There's a lot more on this web page we can go into on this, all different stuff, but it's just not, I just don't have the time to go into all of it. But, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it's a great map, but still no difference than having to pull up each map for each state. For example, if I go into networks and I want to run me A double, say out of Victoria, and I'm basing it off the map routing I've got to go on for the one I have. That's all good and well there. Yeah, I've got all my bridges and all that there. And all my weights. That's not a problem. Yep. Let's say I want to shoot up through Shepparton, which is right here. Pop out of Tokamo. I can track it all back. Yep, cool, not a problem. Then Bridget Wallen, hang on. And this is where the concerning part is. Believe it or not, it's on the inbound. I'm safe. I can still keep going. But then if I want to know for, say, New South Wales, and where is it? Performance-based standards map. Unfortunately, it is lacking information. The Victorian one has more. And the thing is, you go through, and yes, you can hit all the information and stuff like that, not a problem. And yes, you can hit the question marks, gives you the details, stuff like that, that's not a problem. But when I go to, say, Queensland, permit scheme, it's zero emission vehicles only. It is missing what is needed in there. So, the only map that is probably the best one, and unfortunately the transport industry doesn't go by this, because it's the Defence Force. And it actually shows a lot more, as you can see there, with all their maps, the whole lot. Yes, they've got a couple for New South Wales. But yes, the Australian Defence Force do actually have PBS permits. I know this. I've spoken to probably about a dozen military officers, heavy vehicle military officers in the Army. And we've spoken about stuff like, their current trailers and which ones they can use, which ones they can't, and restrictions. And they are also limited to the rest of the transport industry as well. Now, if we had AI going into it, going off one map, it'd make life a lot easier. Now, the thing is that at the end of the day, AI would eliminate, and I'll show you this here, right? Now, I'm going to pull up one I had the other day. I was in an AB triple, and I started questioning what was going on. And I was actually up in Narrabri. Here we go. Narrabri. And where I had to go was up in this area up in here. Now, the thing is that unless you have access to this here, you actually miss out on a lot of information. And the information you miss out, because now I had to speak to my compliance officer to actually get this. And I'm just pulling it up now. I won't say who the compliance officer is, but I will throw up the photo that compliance officer sent me. And what it was this here. There, you can probably see that a bit better. Now, that there, believe it or not, is this area here, where I can and can't go. There is nowhere on NHVR Go public use to get it, unless you can log into one of these, hit your access permits and stuff like that. You can't do it. Which means when you've got a stack of permits for when you're running B double, A double, AB triple, and your permits are about this thick, half a M paper, and you're flicking through, you're wasting time. You're wasting travel time, because if you go by the law, you are actually wasting time, because you've got to be booked on whilst looking for your permits and stuff like that. They want it, if you book off, go hunt through your permits. The government agencies turn up. What are you doing? Well, I'm trying to find an access permit here. Why aren't you booked on? Well, I'm not driving. Doesn't matter. If we had an AI system, that would prevent all that. And now, with that, it'd make life a lot easier. Now, moving on with that, one of the things I would actually say with having that AI system in there is to actually throw an app in. Now, people are going to say, where's the funding going to come for this? And I'll get to that very soon. Now, if we throw out a free app, that app can actually help just not the transport drivers. The allocators and operations managers can use it. The compliance officers can do it because they punch a rego in. They put the start, the finish in it. If it says, no, you've got to have a PBS for that combination in these areas, what's your registration for your trailers? Now, before I go any further on that, I am aware of the fact that PBS is actually based off VIN numbers. It's the only thing that doesn't change on a trailer or a prime mover. But VIN numbers are assigned to number plates. So, at the end of the day, you don't want them having to punch all the VIN numbers in. They're too long. You just want to punch a number plate in. Yep, start, finish. Now, this app can also put in at the same time. It can show you all your rest areas along the way. It can show, you can also add in for fueling. Now, some fuel stop places, you can't get into, say, an AB triple. You can't get in and out of them, or you can get out of them, but you can't get in, or you can get in, but you can't get out, depending on their layout. Now, unfortunately, the government probably could regulate it a bit, but they don't. It is what I would say pretty much splitting hairs. It's something you just don't want to go near. Now, the app could supply heaps, break up points. Now, let's say, for example, I'm running an A double out of Melbourne on PBS, and I'm heading for Archfield. Now, it would route up to Gatton and then advise I've got to split up at Gatton or before Gatton. Now, the way this app would actually go would be everything to be in green for the suggested route, and anything that is outside on a approved road you can go in be black. Now, if there's a road where you're not allowed on, it just goes red. If it's a large area, put a blanket orange or a blanket yellow over it. Now, the thing is, the one thing that I haven't gone on with yet, and I'm about to point this out now, is if you have a look here, this writing here for the new highway approval, zoom in. I can't read that. And from what I've heard, some of the NHVR officers struggle to read it as well. But you look at the side road, it can be read. You get down here, the street name, it's in black. The highway name is in yellow writing with white background. The only way I can read that, and I can try and zoom in, and it just stays the same size. It makes it, not till you get in a bit more, it does make it harder and harder, and it's actually blurring out as I zoom in. So, if I didn't have my glasses on, I wouldn't be able to read it. Same with the average driver. So, what you do is, you have everything that's in green right up with black writing. Anything that's in black that is approved to travel on, you put it in white writing. Now, if there's a road with conditions, by all means, use a yellow on it. The road yellow with black writing. If you're not allowed on that road, red road, black writing. Not a problem. And as I said, conditional roads might actually go in orange, blanketed areas in yellow. Problem solved. Now, this would save a lot of headache because then it would go nationwide. The AI would actually be able to log into the 3 service for NHVR, Main Roads Northern Territory, Main Roads WA, check to make sure you got all your accreditation and to be able to route you all the way through. Not a problem. And I would go as far as, and this will become part of the revenue for it, but a legislation would have to be put in place as well to state that anyone that supplies an external app or navigation, because some drivers don't want to use their phones to navigate everything, they want to use their NavMe, Garmin, or whatever they've got there to actually set it up and go through that way. But I would say the legislation would have to go into state that any provider that supplies navigation of some description through app or navigation equipment, must have a Wi-Fi connection or be able to Wi-Fi to a phone or a Wi-Fi connection to get the updates to keep legal. Otherwise, I would say it would be an illegal one and wouldn't hold up in court. So that is what's needed on that one. And yeah, now I've had a few people turn around and say, oh, but that's what the NHVR is for. Unfortunately, the NHVR cannot quote WA Northern Territory. They don't deal with the states. They're not in the states. And it's the same as me quoting unsolicited legal advice to someone else. It just can't be done. And vice versa, they can't quote it here. But having the web page, having the page also for navigation and the mapping through the whole nation would mean training officers would be a lot easier, because we're going off the one thing that we could call the Bible. We all go to here, which means when you get to agents that are cross-border trained, so it doesn't matter whether it's South Australia and WA or, say, Victoria and New South Wales, they all go by the one. That's all there. Everyone's got access to it. So, again, the transport drivers, the compliance officers, operations managers, owner drivers, police officers, prosecutors, judges, and probably said it before, clients as well, sending and receiving clients, could help them try and average everything. This, by doing this, can also actually slow the raising cost of living as well, because at the end of the day, the more time that us drivers have got to spend on the road trying to work this stuff out, the more money we're going to want in our pays. That money's got to be reclaimed somewhere else, which means you've got to pass it on to the clients. And when we pass it on to the clients, where does that go? It goes out to the general public. Simple as. So, the question has come up, where is the revenue? Where are we going to make the revenue for this? And it is something that I've actually sat down and thought about over the last few weeks since the last video. I think it was about 3 or 4 days after I released it, that question came up. And I thought about long and hard. Now, the first way I came up, we could add $1 or $2 on the driver's license for heavy vehicles and on registrations of all heavy vehicle equipment. Not knowing the number of actual licenses and heavy vehicle equipment that's registered in the country, I opted against it and I went, no, I think a better way is, if we were to put the price of fuel up, say, by 0.2 or 3 cents a litre, in the short term, no one's going to notice it. No one would in the short term. And we're talking across all fuels. So, the money, I couldn't see a reason why just with that, you wouldn't actually gain between $10 and $30 million a year. I mean, we don't exactly sell 1 million litres of fuel a day. It varies for who needs what. But the general public should be paying as well, for the simple fact that they go looking up laws. They have to deal with it somehow. They ask questions, they Google stuff, and it all comes up. So the revenue can be made up just out of the fuel, and that should be enough there per year to put a decent system in place where staff are paid for, equipment's paid for, and everything else. Now, it's not actually a real easy thing to get a lot of this done. I know it's not, and I've been sitting on this now for 10 years, and it's only been in the last 6 months I've really put a lot more into it, with suggestions, with talking to people about it and stuff like that. I've spoken to multiple drivers, multiple company owners, plus NHVR and police. And the common thing I've had more come back saying, why haven't we got this already? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't really know. But I have had a handful go, but that's what the NHVR is for, and they wouldn't budge any further. Unfortunately, being like that, it's pretty narrow-minded, but would say a lot of them don't leave the NHVR states. We've got to look at the poor drivers that do run east-west, or, from the east coast up in the Northern Territory. I couldn't tell you. I've only driven to Darwin once. I've driven to Perth twice, and I couldn't tell you half the laws up there. But the one thing I did notice out of all, and I'm just wrapping up a couple of other details in amongst it, is the oversized over mass mapping is not that crash shot on NHVR Go either. And I know there's a lot of questions coming up asking why are trucks still going off route. Maybe because we have to, and once again I'll show it. We still have to run through various maps. I can go down to vehicle and routing, and I can hit this, but pre-approved Vic only, pre-approved Vic only, Vic. I'm sorry, but there's just nothing there. I do believe, like Queensland, Vic, we haven't come across a New South Wales one yet. And that's just for an oversized with, prime mover, dolly and float. There's nothing, New South Wales, I stand corrected. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we need to improve the system. There's not one part of that map that will allow you to pull up a whole B-double map throughout the whole of the NHVR states, let alone the whole country. The first time I went to Darwin, I got pulled into Catherine there at the Weybridge, and I pulled up and walked in the office and said, guys, how do I look up your B-double maps? And unfortunately, they couldn't, they had to hand me a pamphlet. And they didn't know where to go. So, but that was probably about 7-8 years ago. I dare say they've probably updated over the times and gotten a lot better. But again, I don't normally go up there, but I have been up there. It's something that needs changing. Now, again, I'm not basing this off the professional drivers that have been doing it for years. I'm basing it off the following. The average driver, the new driver that comes in, just not the overseas drivers, but the Australian people that go and get a license and go, I'm going to go out, drive a truck and make a living. I'm looking at those. Now, I know where I'm going up and down the East Coast. I know where I can and can't go. South Australia's a bit sketchy because I haven't done much in there. But the whole of the East Coast, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, I can tell you right now, and a little bit of ACT. I can tell you where to go, not a problem. I can sit here and in one hand tell you all the turns from Burke all the way to Townsville. It's quite simple. But the average person who's never done the run before won't be able to know it. You grab someone that's been on the Hume Highway or the Pacific Highway all their driving career and then go, mate, here you go, here's your load, you're going to Perth. They've got to ask questions. Where do I go? What am I doing? Where do I stop? How long is it going to take? What do I need to know? And you can't get it all. I mean, when I had my truck going, anything that had to go to WA, I made them supply the actual declaration for the quarantine at the border. I refused to have that load loaded unless they supplied it for me. I said to them, it's not my job to supply that to move your freight. You want your freight to go there, you must supply it because you know the details. I don't. Unless you're prepared to give me every bit of detail, which meant the pickup, the delivery address. Now, it could be the fact that they might have got multiple stuff, put it all together. They don't want me knowing all that information. I'm only taking it to their depot in Perth. They don't want me having everything, so they've got no choice. They've got to supply it. If they couldn't supply that to me, I used to refuse to run it. But other people go, no, I'll take the gamble and go. This would make life a lot easier having this. As again, AI is, whether we like it or not, it's the way it's going. And I say, let's embrace it. Let's try and improve the transport industry for both sides of the fence a lot better than what it is now. Because at the end of the day, I've even spoken to the insurance companies about it. And if this system can even knock back 10, 20, 30% of the bridge hits, with local trucks and people that don't know the area, that means insurances aren't going to jump up so quick because there's not as many claims to go through. But look, guys, if you made it to this point, by all means, drop a comment, ask a question. I'm more than happy to answer it. I would ask, share the video around. I want everyone's opinion on this. You know, at the end of the day, I'm trying to get a web page up. We'll get the government to put a web page up that would be the Bible, the one that we all go to. This would save the NHVR a bit of money. It'd save main roads a bit of money in WA and Northern Territory. And it'd also give enough access point for the policy riders to have a backdoor entrance into it, to upload stuff, and have the states go, we'll take this, no, we don't want that. So, yeah. Other than that, guys, thank you for listening to me, and hopefully we can get through on this. Thank you.